our conversations. The TEL Talks team consists of Nikki Lepowski, Quality Improvement Coordinator, and myself, Christy Berg, Workforce Advising Coordinator. We work with Corey Woosley and Katie Hoffman at Childcare Aware to bring you TEL Talks. Some of our previous topics have included telling the story of early childhood development and early childhood educators, a critical link to increasing breastfeeding rates in Minnesota. On November 18th, Jamie Bonzik, Priscilla Weigel, and Beth Meninga will join us for a conversation on identifying support for staff recruitment, retention, and development. Please visit the career advancement page of our website to view previously recorded TEL Talks. After today's presentation, you will receive an email from me with the PowerPoint slides with any other resources shared. Childcare Aware of Minnesota is a resource and referral network for early childhood education.
Christy, you're muted.
I know. Okay, hopefully I'm unmuted now. Thank you. We assist families in finding a quality childcare program. We support the professional growth of early childhood educators with professional development opportunities, eager to learn online training, grants, parent aware, and scholarships. We keep the community informed on the importance of quality childcare. Childcare Information Services is a department within CCA that specializes in statewide information sharing and assisting families who are looking for childcare. CCIS sends a welcome packet to new programs and surveys programs every 3 years on business policies and tuition rates. The rates are confidential and can influence CCAP reimbursement rates. CCIS receives calls from program leaders across Minnesota with general business questions and can route you to the appropriate person to contact. Childcare Aware partners with Center for Inclusive Childcare, which provides free relationship-based professional development, including support, modeling, and resources to childcare programs throughout Minnesota. A coach will spend time with your program, providing support, focusing on the successful inclusion of children with challenging behaviors or special needs, implementing health and safety best practices, and/or supporting the unique needs of infants and toddlers in your care. Achieve, Minnesota Center for Professional Development, supports individual, trainer, and RBPD membership applicants and approves courses and training events. The Achieve MNCPD website has several resources to share, including a job board, policy info, Minnesota Career Lattice, a virtual career guide, and help with tracking down your high school diploma. The TEL Talks team partners with several organizations to offer coordinated resources surrounding early care and education needs. As always, participants of TEL Talks are encouraged to ask questions throughout the presentation and engage in dialogue with our presenter. We can take you off of mute to share your ideas and questions, or we can read your comments in the chat box. You can also use the raise your hand features to indicate that you have a question or comment. We are recording the conversations in the main room of the TEL Talk. Conversations that take place in any breakout rooms will not be recorded. And now I'm excited to turn it over to our presenter, Hope. Thank you for being here with us today. And I will stop sharing my screen so you can take over. And yes, please feel free to turn your camera on if you're able to do so and you're feeling comfortable with that. We'd love to see your faces.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here. So today we're going to talk a little bit about hosting college students in your programs. And my background right now, I am a full-time faculty in the early childhood education department at Minneapolis College, and I've been there since 2003. And so a lot of placements, a lot of needs for fieldwork opportunities. So why am I here? I just told you my job at Minneapolis College, but I do also want to let you know, of course, I was a former early childhood educator. I've been an infant room teacher, toddler room teacher, preschool, school age, you name it, kitchen help, janitorial staff, as we all have been, a former early childhood ed director, and I've worked in the for-profit, the nonprofit, the religious-based, the work-based, school-based, community-based, you name it. All out there. I still do some training in the early childhood education field, primarily through Eager to Learn. And again, my full-time job at the college. So I wanted to take just a minute today, and I know that I think we have, how many do we have? We have like 19 of us now. So that would be, I don't want to take too much time, but I also want to recognize everyone in the room today. So hopefully you can find the little chat area, and I would love to see, your name, with that, your position in early childhood ed, and then one thing that you're hoping to get out of today. And as I scroll through that, if it's not currently in what we've got planned for the slides, I would love to make sure I can meet your needs. I didn't realize I didn't have my full screen on. How about that? Well, as we keep having more people type in, oh, I'm not necessarily seeing anything in particular that people want to get out of today. So as we go through, if there's something that's not coming up for sure, insight on how we can help transition to classroom. Amen, April. Amen. North Branch, awesome. Okay. I'm going to move on, and I'll just keep watching that chat as we go. So the biggest thing I think that we would want to say is, why should you? What's in it for you to host a college student at your location? I think that a couple of really important things is anytime we get students that are able to go out to a location, that is a potential new hire for you. And so I know that all of us, or many of us in the field, are really struggling getting new people in the door to work with us. I would love to make sure that we can build leadership skills, not only in those new students that are coming in and kind of help shape them into our own program with our policies and our culture, but also it gives you as a director, or you as some of your staff, that ability to potentially build some leadership skills, to be able to practice that mentoring with others. And then also to really be a role model for your other staff. So like in your working with this student, you can show others how they could be working with their colleagues in your program. So a couple things that always come up for us are that a lot of times colleges have a lot of different requirements. So in our program, they have to take 60 credits to get their 2-year degree. Some are doing 30 credits in early ed, and some are doing 45 in early ed, depending if they're going to transfer on to try to get their 4-year, or if they're stopping out at their 2-year. But some of the courses, they're just there to do some observing. So they just want to see how things are working in the field. I'd say that there's a smaller percentage, but there are some students who are in our college programs that have never worked in a program. And so that observation really gives them that feel for what's going on. Is this what I really want to do? Is this the field I want to stay in? Sometimes they can also do some volunteering, or they can do practicing. The practicing part is there are some courses, our practicum courses, where they actually have to be leading activities part of the time while they're in your program and actually interacting and engaging. So as educators, what we need from you is we would really prefer to have educators that have at least an AS degree in early childhood education in your program, especially for those for the practicum purposes. We really need programs that ideally have a stable environment so that there's not a lot of change in staffing, which I know that's hard to do, but sometimes there are some rooms that seem more stable than others. And we need to have teachers, it should say educators, my bad, and directors willing to give their time to give feedback. So we will ask you to do evaluations on the students. We would ask you to, in the practicum, which is the most intense, they would have to do some weekly meetings. And so those are the kind of the requirements we have and the needs that we have. Does that all make sense? Or please feel free to either raise your hand or shoot me a question in the chat, whatever you might need. And I know that Nikki is watching the chat for me, so if I'm not reading it, she's gonna give me the what about that. Okay. So some of the intro courses I was talking about are really those whether or not they want to choose to be in the field. And so that's going to be, we have an intro to early childhood education. We also have some courses that require them to observe some best practices. So sometimes we'll have placements in different programs. They'll have them go out and do some observations, usually about 15 hours in a guidance class. They'll have them do 15 to 30 hours in, say, a curriculum class, because they want to see how you're implementing curriculum. What do you do for your lesson plans? That allows them to observe what's being done and then try to write some of their own, so that when they actually go into practicum, they kind of have material they've already created. We also have them focus on observation and assessment skills. We know that that's a big deal in a lot of programs. We want to make sure that the students know how to document well, how to write unbiased observations, and then to potentially understand the different assessment tools that might be used in different programs. So again, when they're volunteering or they're observing, there's really, or the observing part, there's no interaction with kids. And again, it's usually that 16 hours to 30 hours in a 16-week semester. Or if it's a summertime semester, it might only be a 10-week program. Oh, I'm so glad that you have lots of practicum students. Thank you, Courtney. That is just awesome. So with the volunteering, it's the same, everything that you had for the observing portion, but you are allowing the student to interact while they observe, but they're not counted in your ratios. They're an extra set of hands, but according to DHS rules, right, we need to always follow the rules. The other thing I should mention is that I know in our program that we actually require all of our students to do the background study within our program, so we know that they're ready to be in the workforce. We also do recognize that the new system does then allow us for you to be able to see that background study and to share that information, because they can go in and add and they're already in the system. There may still be an added fee for that if you need that, but just know that I do believe the majority of programs in the state also have that background requirement for their college students, which is helpful. We use NetStudy 2.0 as well. So I'm not sure, April, what background study others are using, but we are using the same background study at Minneapolis College, at least, which is what I can speak to the most. We're using the same NetStudy 2.0 that the providers are using. So this is why I know that my students can kind of flex back and forth, because I encourage them, if they haven't already, if they're already working in a location, then we can tap into their 2.0 study. And if they're not, we do it, and then we make sure they put their social security number in so that you can easily tap into their study as well. Great question, or great. So I would check with your campus and let them know if there's a background study that they should be doing and they're not. Okay, good for you. That's awesome. This is the big one. Practicum is that it's really just that, it's practice. So it's putting into practice the learning that they've gotten thus far in their education. They should be placed in one classroom and not be floating from classroom to classroom, because the goal is really to build relationships with children, relationships with their colleagues, and have their supervising educator really be able to see them on a daily, weekly basis. One of the things we really are looking for is that the educator have at least an AS degree in early childhood. So an AS would be that 60 or 2-year degree. If they have more than that in early childhood, that's awesome. And we do recognize that the state of Minnesota allows for people without a 2-year degree to still be lead teachers or lead educators in a classroom. But our goal is that the student should be gaining information and knowledge from someone who's had a similar college experience that they're having at that time. Oh yeah, Wisconsin, April, I see. I can't speak to what Wisconsin has. That is going to be like foreign language to me, Wisconsin and background studies. Usually most practicums have a minimum of 80 hours. And again, we have practicum 1 and practicum 2, and our practicum 1 is 80 hours. And that's because it's, and that's the one that would, all of our 2-year degrees would have at least that practicum. The 2-year degree, which is the AAS, would have a second practicum, which is 120 hours. So the first one is more about individual lesson plans and thinking about guidance in transitions and safety and health practices. The second practicum would be more about overall curriculum planning, like looking at weekly plans, monthly plans, as well as those other things that they would look at for the first practicum. With that, the college instructors get to come out and observe. Now, that was a little bit of a challenge with the pandemic because some programs didn't even let parents walk into the building, correct? So how could we let this stranger come in that has no tie to our program? So we've been doing either some virtual visits. Sometimes we have them sign off that they could do a recording. Sometimes it has been more a Zoom meeting with the supervising educator, the practicum student, and then the practicum instructor. So it has to be a little flexible, right? We're learning to be more flexible in our world right now than we ever have had to be before. Most programs have like a weekly reflection. One of the goals of most 2-year programs is to have a chance for the student to become a reflective practitioner. So looking at what worked well this week, what didn't work so well, and what I'm going to work on for next week. Thinking about that practice is really important. And a lot of times it's then having the student write down those things, meeting briefly with their supervising educator to say, this is what I thought went well. This is what I didn't think went so well. This is what I'm thinking about trying, or do you have some ideas on what I could try to make some changes for, you know, the thing that didn't go so well to go better the next time. Also, it's their time to say, you know, like, I think you're being too hard on yourself. I think you did better on that than you realize. I think our students can be really hard on themselves. And so we really should take that time to also validate them. And so that's why that, you know, even if it's just a 15-minute meeting at the end of each week saying, let's talk about how the week went. So there is that time. Then you usually have to sign off on that paperwork so that we know that the meetings happened. There's usually then an evaluation also at the end with recommendations on what they could improve on and how they did. So practicum, there is some work to be completed. Now, as an aside, and I know we're recording this and that's okay, I didn't put this on the form, but I would really love to see us figure out a way with DHS for whoever the supervising educator is to receive hours for their work as a relationship-based practice. So just know that that's been on my radar. I keep bringing it up. I'll keep bringing it up. I feel that whoever is willing to do this work with incoming people into our field should get something. There's no mechanism for us to pay them. Heck, we can't even pay our students to go and work for you. So how can we pay the person who's supervising them? But if we could figure out some way to get some hours, just know that those of us at the 2-year level have been discussing this and trying to figure out a way to make that happen. We'd also love to just even have a certification that I qualify as a supervising educator. So then we could have a list that the students would be able to say, oh, that center has one of those. And so that would be great for you center directors to be able to say, oh, let's get some of these certifications in place. So that's a pipe dream for Hope Dorner. It's not a reality right now, but wouldn't it be great? Yeah, Christy, yeah. Wouldn't it be great if we could do something like this? I love to live in dreams and I work really hard to try to get closer to them. And we've done some things that have been progressive. And I think that if you give me another 2 to 5 years, maybe we can make this happen. I mean, I'm so old. When I started, we didn't give credit for relationship-based training, right? And so I know that our system can evolve and we'll get there eventually. You're shaking your head. I turn 55 next week. Maybe it's not old, but it's older than probably most that are in here. Okay. All right, any questions about the kinds of placements? Does that make sense? Those three, like the observation, the volunteer. Okay. April, that is awesome that you can pay people. It would be helpful. I mean, the nice thing is if you could pay them when they come in for practicum. Thanks, Charlotte. Good for you. You keep going. But if you could pay them when you get, if you can pay a practicum student that wasn't one of your original employees, what are the chances are they're going to stay and work for you, right? So that is a perk if you can look at it and afford that. I know that they're, if they're your employee, they can be working while they're doing their practicum. So we have many people who are already in the field with a job. We don't make them go to a different location because we are not looking to hamper their income, right? They need that job and they need that revenue. We are not going to make them move, but we would be looking at places that someone in their location could be their supervising educator. The three categories again are the volunteer, or so just coming in and observe. So basically kind of being a fly on the wall and making observations so they can learn more about the field. Volunteering so that they can be interacting with your students, but not part of your ratio. Or for practicum, they would need to be able to put in place some of the activities that they learned in the classroom. That's awesome. Perfect. Okay. So which of these, so some of you have been sharing already that you've had experience with this. Who hasn't had a student from a college come to their location, and what would you think about that? Why, would you like to experience it? What are your hesitancies or what are your questions? You can type, or if you want to just raise your hand. I'm okay hearing other voices besides mine for this 60-minute time.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I myself am new to the daycare space, and as far as I know, we've never had any students here. I think just because maybe we don't have anybody who's really doing this.
Okay.
So, oh shoot, I forgot what I was going to ask. I'm so sorry.
Bailey, no worries. All is good.
Let me think on it for one more minute, and I'll come back to you.
So, Heather, how do you mean, how do we get on a list? Say more, Heather. I want you to unplug and talk to me. I miss your voice.
Sure. How do we get to be able to accept teachers?
All right, so at the very end, I'm going to give you a link to the so the last slide, I'm going to give you this is a spoiler alert. Plug your ears if you want to wait till the last slide. Spoiler, so at the last slide, I have a link and then the list of colleges that are teach approved in the state. And so part of it would be, if you aren't getting students right now, I would reach out to that college faculty and say, hey, put me on your list. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through of how we do it. Every campus is going to be a little different, but I can share with you how we do it. And so part of it is going to be your location, right? So I am located in downtown Minneapolis, and many of my students ride the bus. They don't have transport. Now, some do. So chances are, now Heather, you're way down in like Eden Prairie, right?
Minnetonka.
So chances are my bus riding students are not going to come out to you because it would take them so much time. But I could still put you on my list for those that have cars, and some do live out there. We could also put you on the list probably for Hennepin Tech because they have the Eden Prairie location and the Brooklyn Park location, and then their students could be anywhere. So just know that it's more about creating a relationship then with that college instructor. And then I can talk to you about how we share that list with folks. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have staff. We have on staff an education major from St. Kate's in our hiring an education major from Bethel. That's awesome, Charlotte. Okay. I'm going to go on. If you have any questions, please just pop in. I would love to hear a voice now and then. Like I said, I'm sure my husband who's working from home would rather hear some other voices in the house besides mine too. All right. So top concerns for, oh, I went too far. For college programs. So again, we're looking at availability of classrooms and hours. The more kind of availability you have, and kind of that, you know, we were looking for that stable environment. So our students aren't going to necessarily come in and maybe, you know, patch a hole for you, especially if you have a lot of rotation. Most programs, as a past center director, I know that there are times when you're like, woo, I've got a really solid crew right now. And I'm like, life is going great. And then 2 weeks from now, I could have somebody have a family emergency and they need to take family leave. I could have somebody else who goes out on maternity leave. I could have somebody who needs to move, or somebody just up and quits. And so then all of a sudden I don't have that stability. And even if in that happens, usually you have one classroom that you can say, okay, this is the classroom that this person is staying in. This is the room I want to put people in, for a couple reasons. You don't want it to seem so chaotic in your location that the person wouldn't want to come and work there, right? You would want to see a classroom that kind of shows your program at its best. And also, like I was just talking with, how their location will matter depending upon the student. We would really love, again, that person who has at least an ECED 2-year degree. They would really, we really encourage, and we have worked around supervising educators for practicum who don't have that degree, but maybe they're not the one working with them regularly, but maybe the director does. So the director can be doing some of those meetings. And again, that time commitment to visit and train programs. And so we can help you know what you need to do and how to do it. A lot of ECE directors say to us, there's not enough educators workers for their program. So they end up having to ask for variances for their staff. So this potentially could help that pipeline of getting more educated student employees for your programs. There's a need for educators to understand assessments, because there's a lot of paperwork depending on the program you're at. You may do more assessments than others. There's a lack of experience in educators when hiring and not knowing if they're going to stay. And how do we keep them once they're there, once we hire them? So those are the concerns that we hear from you about staffing. And we want to say our students can solve a lot of this. So if you bring our students in and it goes well, a lot of the places then end up hiring the student that was doing their practicum or their work there. They're already taking a full class, a 16-week, 3-credit college class on observation and assessment to get a 2-year degree in our program. That's just one of the classes. They're getting experience because, again, I think there's 4 classes they need between 15 and 30 hours and at least 1 80-hour practicum. So they're coming in with hours in the field. So it's not like they're truly green. And then how to keep them once they're hired. That is a harder one. I will be very honest. I think part of it's going to a lot of times come down to, is your environment fairly stable? Are your benefits, or, you know, money is tight everywhere, but it's hard. We all know that none of our folks, even us, don't get paid what we should in our field. So we know that's a little bit harder, but I think becomes that bond and that loyalty there because you've given them that chance. So those were the concerns I had listed. Oop, I keep trying to move my faces around so I can see my PowerPoint. Those are the concerns that I've heard. Are there other concerns that people have that we might want to mention in the field? And you can either type or share. Bailey, did you remember your question?
And I thought of another question. So just in relation to location, we're located in Hibbing, Minnesota, so we're kind of far away. But, you know, being far away and not really having a lot of people that are in these programs and coming out of these programs, we really do want to, you know, kind of get involved in this. Is there a way that it's possible, being that we're about 2.5-3 hours away, for us to work with your students? Or do you think that's kind of like stretching it?
Well, you have other campuses right near you. So there is Central Lakes Community College, well, not right near you. We have Central Lakes Community College. We also have, I'm not sure if Itasca has a program or not. So at the end, when we look at the list, we'll be able to see what's closest. The other thing, Bailey, that I didn't necessarily touch on here is recruiting people that aren't in a program and have them go to school for you. So we all of you heard of Teach? I'm going to do yes, no, maybe. So Teach is a lot of my students are on Teach scholarships that are working in the field. So they might have already had a job and then their employer is sending them to go to school to get their 2-year degree. So Bailey, for you, you might want to say as a recruitment tactic, not only will I pay you X dollars as your wage with whatever else you have for benefits, I will support you to get your 2-year degree. And you can either do it online, you know, like through a program like mine, or you could go to a more local campus, and all of the ones on the Teach scholarship page that I'll show you at the end would accept that Teach scholarship. And the way Teach works is like, you can go to the Teach site and get all the deets for sure. But basically Teach, then you do the application. If you're accepted, Teach then pays your bill at the college, which is everything from books, tuition, and fees. And then they bill back. The student normally pays 10% and the employer pays 5%. Some employers are willing to pay the full 15%, and that way the student has zero out-of-pocket money. Then while they're going to school, they're working for you. They have to be working for you for a minimum of 20 hours a week. Yeah, that's great, Bailey. The other thing is you could look at just either getting a certificate, which is 18 credits. Some programs have diplomas, which are only 31 credits, or you have your 2-year degree, which is the 60 credits. The thing about Teach is it only pays for 18 credits a year because they know that you're working. They don't want you to be trying to work full-time, school full-time. Something's going to give, and they don't want you to be bad in the classroom and tired and cranky with the kids. So 18 credits is your max there.
And Hope,
So-
can I pop in
Yeah.
for just a second?
Yeah.
So I'm Annette. I'm from the Child Care Aware District, Northeast District. And I just wanted to let Bailey know, since she was in Hibbing, Pine Technical and Community College does offer their online certificate and diploma, and they are actively pursuing centers for our practicum students. So when Hope shows you that slide at the end, highlight Pine and
Definitely.
connect with them.
And that's just it.
Perfect.
There are people all over the state. So that's why it's so nice to have that list to see what's around you. And also Teach pays not just for the 2-year degree. You can go, your folks can go all the way through and get their 4-year degree with Teach, which is fantastic. So just something to think about that. And so how long it takes is going to depend on if they come in with any credits. That's the other thing. If they already have their CDA, most programs accept the CDA for a couple of the, for up to 6 credits, so 2 classes. Those transfer in, and Teach pays for those. They're called credit by exams to get those in. So there's no fee for the student for those. It's just a really great process. So we'll get, that was kind of, again, spoiler at the end. So why should we have these students in your program? Again, it creates opportunity for growth for the educators that are already in your program. A lot of times people will say to me, so why do you mentor others? And why do you teach things to others to basically that could take over your job? And I find that when I open up myself to mentor someone else, I actually think I get more out of it than the student or whoever I'm mentoring, because it makes me relook at my practices and helps me be able to define the why I'm doing things. And rather than, oh, that's just what I do, it's like, oh, why do I do that? And so it's a dual process. That it's not just a growth for the student that's coming in, it really is the growth for the others that they're working for in the program. This is your potential pipeline for new staff. You also get to see students in action. And the nice thing is, because they're not necessarily hired, you don't have to hire them if they're not meeting your high standards. I would love to say that every single student that comes in my program is amazing, but I have a few that are maybe still a work in progress and maybe aren't quite the right fit for your program, but might be a right fit for a different program. But so this kind of gives you that almost like a on-the-job training or interview that you don't have to follow through with if it's not a good fit. But it does help create that relationship with a new potential new staff so that they can see how much you care about the field in general. It also, again, that leadership skills, you grow in your own practice as well as being a role model for other staff, and the importance of being a part of an industry and a field and a profession and not just an isolated entity. Any other ideas of why we should have students in our program that I missed? For those who have had students in their program? I'm going to be very honest that I only have about 15% of my students that are currently not working at a program that are coming into early ed. So I do, a funny story, or maybe not so funny story. About 10 years ago, I was calling every place I possibly could think of for placements for my students, and I couldn't even get a call back. And then probably about 4 to 5 years ago, for some reason, everyone was calling me saying, do you have students? Do you have students? Do you have students? Do you have students? Can I have any of your students? Do you have students? Because they were hoping for this pipeline. So just know that even if you do make a relationship with a college, it's not like we are overflowing. I don't know if any of you have been reading the news or watching the news. Community college attendance as a whole is down drastically around the nation, and around in Minnesota, it's down, I think, 13% over the last 2 years. It's just not happening. And we have a lot to overcome with people hearing about early ed in the news, that they're not going to get paid a whole heck of a lot. And they're on the front line working with COVID, potentially, classroom closings, exposures, that, you know, none of these little ones under 5 are even remotely close to getting vaccinated. And so it's them and their families that they're interacting with. And so there's a risk. So it is a harder sell as a profession right now. But just know that that 15% of mine still need places to go. And we would love to be able to put them someplace positive and help all of you out. So this is what I'm going I'm kind of going fast, but I'll have time for questions at the end. Or unless you get anything before then. So how can I connect students with your program? So you want to go to the college faculty at the local college nearest to you, or like you said, like, where's my region? And that's like, come to Pine Tech, we're ready for you, Region 3. And they would do a fabulous job with you if that's your area. The biggest thing is, again, just like we do with children and families, it's all about relationships, right? It's about who are you connecting with? How can you help let them know what an amazing program that you have? So especially if you're not, like, if you're in Bemidji and they're down at Pine, set up a Zoom meeting. If you can, if you're close, like if I'm here in the metro, a lot of people will just invite me to come to their center so I can get a better understanding of what their program looks like, how they might be able to utilize students, who do they have on staff. Then once you do that Zoom meeting or phone or in-person meeting, then, you know, again, really make sure you're clear on what classes need field work. So I said that, you know, I can kind of speak in general for all of the 2 years, but every program's a little unique, right? So we might ask that we do 30 hours in our intro class. We might only ask 15 hours in guidance. Another program might ask 30 hours in guidance. And so this is where you need to know that program and then kind of say, well, this is where we could then put them in. It would also then make sure that you can share as much about your program and encourage them to come out and see your program if you've only done the phone visit. Also, maybe have a list. You don't need to name the staff, but say, I have 2 staff with 4-year degrees in early childhood ed. one staff with their 2-year degree in early childhood ed. I have 2 staff with the CDA. That would help that faculty know that you meet the qualifications to be able to send people in your direction. So be as proactive about that as possible. And then I would, all of the colleges in the 2-year system in Mid-State they start in like the last 2 weeks of August, and then they start again, their next semester starts in January. So if you're thinking about placements, you might want to say, even put a notice on your calendar as an event that you're going to call them or connect with them, maybe middle of August, beginning of August, to say, I just want to remind you that we're welcome, we're here and ready to have any of your students come. Do the same thing like January 1, I'm going to email those colleges and let them know. Then we also have a summer session that's usually like the end of May. So like middle of May, you might want to do 1 more email. So 3 emails a year, at least, connecting with them, reminding them that you're ready and available. What I do at our campus is I have a list of everyone who's offered to be a placement location and let them know the location, potential rooms. And again, it's nice for me in the metro. Are you on a bus route? How far are you from my campus? Those are the kind of things that are helpful. One program even listed on there, like why you should come to our program, was like they had free snacks in the staff room. They listed all of these, really like this would be a really cool place to go to. And I have to say, a couple of my students took them up on it, and they said it really was true. They did have free snacks in the staff lounge. So it was anything you want to do to try to sell your program a little bit. Maybe it's even that normally your employees have to buy a shirt to wear there, but while they're there, they can, they get some of these things for them. Whatever you can do to kind of give them the perks or just something to think about, and have that kind of laid out. The other thing that I would say, and I know this isn't about placing students for practicum or schoolwork, I have what's called a closed Facebook group just for my current students and my alumni. And so the other thing you can do is, if you have that connection with the college and you have a job posting, not just placements for practicum or visits or observations, is you can say, hey, I'm looking to hire. I then put that out there on my closed Facebook group for all of my students to be able to see. And like I said, it's not just the ones that are currently with me, it's the ones who've already graduated as well. And so that's where a lot of my students go to look for job opportunities, because they know if Hope's putting it up there, she probably has a relationship with that program and it would be good to look at. So this is the work part. So again, I'm going to show you on the next slide the list of how to connect to your college program. You should really have an onboarding process for new students, kind of going over what your policies are, what the expectations are for their hours there, a way to document their hours. You should really have staff or other educators who are willing to work with these students and have them in their rooms. I've had some directors who've been immensely excited about having folks, and then the student gets in there and their cooperating educator or supervising educator does not seem to want to have them in their space. So you really need to make sure that whoever they're placed with wants them in that room and in that environment and wants to be a part of this, or else it's a negative experience for everyone all around. There is paperwork that you need to complete for the college to verify hours. Often also when they're actually doing their practicum, there's a signed document that the colleges need saying that you've agreed to do the practicum, that the student will be working in that capacity, even if they're being hired, as one like kind of more contracty thing. And then you need to be willing to evaluate the student performance at the end. All right, so now I cut it off, so Pine is on this list, and I'll go to this link in just a minute, Annette, I promise. But I wanted you to see that there is a list on childcare where approved colleges and universities, and these are the ones that work and can be connected to the Teach Scholarship. And so those would be the ones that I would potentially work with first, because again, if you had a student come out and start doing their observations with you and you really like them, wouldn't it be great if you can say, yeah, I can hire you, you can start working for me, and I can help you get 18 credits of college a year for free or close to free. So let me just quick go to that link, maybe. Maybe, maybe not. Here it comes. It's a little slow. So there's Pine Tech right there. This will give you every college, all of the 2-year colleges. So you're going to see the majority of them are part of the Minnesota State College system, but you do have also private colleges like Rasmussen are listed on here. Here are the 4-year campuses that you could connect with. And since and some of these are private, like Concordia is a private, again, Rasmussen is a private, but a lot of these are public information. If you were to go to Min State colleges, it will list all of the campuses and you can see them on a map. So we've got, now not all of them are necessarily going to have early childhood education programs, but you could then potentially look to see what's near you and what might you be able to tap into. Oh, communication about parents. Thanks, Nikki. That's a great thing. So Nikki wrote in the chat that suggestions about communication with parents and children about this new person in the program. So often when we're for practicum, when they're going to be actually engaging with the children and leading some activities, we ask that the part of the practicum assignments is that they create a letter that would go out to all of the families explaining that they're in school and this is part of their education. And so a lot of times they use that same template if it's just for the observation, or many programs say we are aligning ourselves with X, Y, and Z college. I'm going to say Minneapolis College, and we will be having students come in and do observations randomly throughout this semester, and they might be in these 2 rooms. So we encourage you to do that if it's not like they're going to be leading a class, that oftentimes we let that fall on the shoulders of the center director. For practicum, the practicum student actually has to create a letter that would go out explaining who they are, their background, and why they're at that program. Great question.
Thanks, Hope.
You bet. All right, so questions. We've had a few, but we still have, I have 12 minutes left. Not that I can't gift that back to you if any of you need it, but I also did want to show that my contact information, because I'm a fast talker. And the other thing is, if you just go to Minneapolis College and go to the directory and search for Hope, I am the only Hope at that college. That kind of sounds badly when I say it like that, but I'm not the only Hope for that college, but I might be the only Hope at that college. Okay. Oh, I can go back. Any other questions, comments, things I didn't cover that you wanted asked or answered? I just would say you might not get someone even when you reach out, which is why I would really encourage you to kind of have a preset email that you're sending to that person right before the beginning of every semester. Because I'm going to be honest, I have 6 different classes I'm teaching this semester with 30 students in each. And I have responsibilities outside of the college, like a life. And then I also have responsibilities at the college, like different committee work. And so you might not be on the top of my mind, but that's where I need your help I need reminders as a person at the campus. And so once you're on my list, I can hand that list out. But then if I have a list of 20, but I get people who are always emailing me or connecting with me, when a student says, well, where should I go? Where should I start? We say, you know what, this person, they call me all the time. or they're connecting with me all the time. Those are the people that's how I send it. So just like we talk about building information with, building relationships with families and children, we need to build that relationship as well, so that I know enough about you to say, I think they'll work with that. Like, I can only come in, I can't come in 5 days a week for 2 hours each day. I can do 2 days for 4 hours each. What program will work with me? I can work with that. So any kind of information that you can give us, and we can continue to dialogue. And I really also would recommend that you send us your job openings, because like I had 3 students this week who were looking for jobs. And so I'm just like, oh, let's see what we can find. And that's where having those relationships is really helpful. Okay. Well, I am done, unless anyone else has something for me.
Where would you like us to send our jobs to you? Do you have an email address, or what's the
So
best way
yes,
to go about that?
I'll put it in the chat right now. So that's going to be for my students. I don't know how many would be willing to move up to where you're at, Bailey, but I would definitely ask, like, does Pine Tech have a list of where they kind of do something like us, where they share job openings with their students? Annette?
They share. So, and I think Bailey had said she connected with Deneen, which is who you want to if you're in the Northeast District. So yeah, send us the information. I mean, it's an email. So if we don't have anybody, it's, only taking 2 minutes of your time, but we do have students from all across the Northeast. So
Awesome.
share away.
And I think I did give her my early childhood education. And then I'm actually the temporary director / office manager, whatever you want to call me, right now. So we are actively looking for a director as well, for our center. So if you have any referrals that are looking, we're looking for someone.
Well, maybe somebody in the metro might want to get out of town. And so I'll definitely put that director posting up for sure. I think with the pandemic, a change of location and living in a different part of the state might not be a bad thing. I think too, there's just a varied change. So it's never bad to put as many of those out there. Who knows who might want to move where you're at.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not in a position where I could leave the area, but if I did have that flexibility, I think, we would definitely be traveling all over the place, because it's nice to get involved in different communities, and it helps expand your mind and challenge you a little bit. So anywhere that I can post our jobs, I'm trying to do the center, the best that I can for it by putting it everywhere and trying to find the best fit for the position. So I appreciate everything. This was wonderful today. I definitely learned a lot. So thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
And
Well,
Bailey,
I think so awesome.
Achieve has a job board too, in case you weren't aware of that. Nikki, I don't know if you can share more information.
Yeah. I would love it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we'll make sure, I think Christy put it in the chat, but we'll make sure to share out some resources on the follow-up email for everybody that registered too. So yeah, we'll try to just help each other out, right?
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, you guys. This is great.
I appreciate all your time.
Thanks, Hope. Thanks everybody for joining today. Christy, did you have anything else to close up? Otherwise, I think we're good to go for the day.
Yeah, I think we're great to go. Thanks, Hope, and thanks for everybody being here today with us.
Have a good one, everybody.